Hi everyone and welcome. Today is the first day of Ramadan. Or is it? Hi everyone and welcome. Today is the first day of Ramadan and everyone who disagrees is not a real Muslim. It is finally Ramadan, the month in which Allah started to reveal the Quran. The month in which Allah blesses all humankind. In which Islam is strong and Satan is weak. Let us all respect Ramadan because we have to respect Ramadan. In this holy, glorious, most peaceful month, people will unite and fast for Allah because they have to fast for Allah. In the glorious Muslim world, dirty infidels, heretics, and hypocrites who don't fast will be harassed, slandered, beaten up, imprisoned, and so on, or just forced to stay out of sight. Everything out of respect, of course. In this holy, peaceful, most beautiful month, people will fast from sunrise till sunset because the Quran instructs them to do so. Unless you live in a place where it is daylight or night for months. In that situation, you cannot fast at all, or you can fast and just starve to death. Allah didn't think that far. It is Ramadan and this is my Ramadan special. Of course I will talk about all the nonsense related to Ramadan. Before I start, I want to thank everyone for your support. My channel is not monetized and probably never will be, so you won't see ads on my channel at all. If you want to support me anyway, you can do so on Patreon. Thank you very much. Ramadan is the 9th month and the holiest month in Islam. It is believed that Muhammad received his first revelation in this month. No one knows when exactly, but the Quran speaks of a blessed night in this month without telling anyone when exactly it is. Many Muslims usually interpret the movements of the moon and point at a specific night every year so that they can pray hardcore at that night. Also, not all Muslims start Ramadan on the same day. The beginning of Ramadan is very vaguely described in the Quran because the Arabs were not really masters of telling what time it is. So nowadays people still look at movements of the sun and declare Ramadan only at that day or a day before. The Quran orders Muslims to fast during Ramadan. The Quran doesn't really say to fast for the entire month, but it implies that. And hadith show further that Muhammad used to fast during the entire month, and so did his companions. People usually ask the question, why do Muslims fast in Ramadan? And moderate Muslims and others make explanations like it's about valuing food and it's some sort of spiritual training and empathy for the poor people and so on. Even our tolerant Western media picks up such things and joins them in explaining why Muslims fast during Ramadan. That's quite funny because the Islamic scriptures give no explanation at all about why Muslims are supposed to fast. So the only acceptable answer in this situation would actually be because the Quran says so. But this is only one of millions of cases where Muslims make up explanations and their Western lovers join them in doing so. Not only eating is forbidden. From sunrise to sunset, Muslims are not allowed to eat, to drink, to smoke, have sex, masturbate, vomit. There are still ongoing discussions about whether Ramadan is healthy or not. Muslim sources usually say that it is completely, brilliantly healthy and there is no danger about it at all. Other organizations that know what they are talking about come down to common sense and explain that specific things during fasting are very unhealthy. If you are a former Muslim, you just get used to not believing what Muslims say when it comes to things that are based on basic knowledge. Islamic sources, of course, are different. Islamic sources, like Hadith, also say that Muhammad used to go into seclusion and fasting even during his last month, while he was almost dead and very weak. That, of course, is a very safe practice. I recommend everyone to do the same. The good thing about Ramadan is that I will probably not see any hateful and bad comments by Muslims on this video, like these. Ramadan is not only about eating, it's also about worshipping Allah and staying away from conflicts and anger. That's why authorities in the Muslim world always want to prove that people are more peaceful during Ramadan. Studies show the opposite in a weird way, which is quite understandable considering that being hungry makes you very impatient. Let's not even start with not smoking if you are a smoker. Maybe that's why Islamic terrorists start to make a real show during Ramadan. Allah apparently helps Muslims in being more peaceful during Ramadan, because He opens the doors to heaven, closes the doors of hellfire, and chains the devils. That of course begs the question, why do people still commit so many sins during Ramadan if the devils are chained, right? Because devils inspire people to commit sins. You can find that question everywhere online. Asked by quite serious Muslims who probably kept a straight face while typing that question. Despite claims by Muslims that the Islamic world becomes much more peaceful during Ramadan, studies have shown that crime rises or stays the same in Muslim-dominated regions during Ramadan. That's why modern scholars came up with the explanation that small devils are not chained during Ramadan, whatever the hell that means. Believe me, as a former Muslim, I can tell you, Satan is definitely not chained during Ramadan. Everything is as it is. Muslims talk a lot about peace and spirituality during Ramadan, but that doesn't prevent them from interfering with other people's rights during that month. Very often it happens that during Ramadan, Muslims in Muslim countries harass and attack people who don't observe the month the way Muslims do. In Turkey, when it happens, it's usually random people storming bars and telling everyone to shut the entertainment and the alcohol down. While doing that, they also beat up people and destroy property, of course. How could they not? Hunger makes them angry. In more problematic countries like Malaysia, they put non-Muslim children at schools in changing rooms where they can eat their food so that they don't disturb Muslims who are fasting. Muslim children who are fasting. In more than a dozen Muslim countries, you cannot even eat, drink, or smoke in public during Ramadan. In some countries you can be fined, in others you can go to jail, and in some you can be flogged for public indecency. Satan help you, it's even worse if you are a local Muslim who eats in public. But we all know Islam is all about peace and tolerance. They usually talk about respecting Ramadan and respecting them fasting. Thinking about respecting the liberties of those who don't fast apparently goes too far. That's too much thinking, you know? I mean, fasting should be a personal choice. You do it for your religion, and you don't have to force others to abide by your rules. But as we all know, Islam is not very well in respecting personal liberties. Islam is a political system that wants everyone to abide by its own rules, and wants everyone to respect that. That is the only reason why there are regulations in Muslim countries regarding how to behave in public during Ramadan. And if you don't abide by those rules, then you will have to face the consequences. Now let's come to the flaw about Ramadan. Let's come to what Allah didn't think about. If you are north of this red line, it means you are north of the Arctic Circle, in a place where you can experience polar nights or midnight suns. You can live there or go there for what reason ever, and can find that the sun is there for months, or that the sun is completely gone for months. If you are to follow the command of the Quran and the Hadith, you would start fasting when the sun appears and then fast until it disappears. If you are in a location where the sun is still there after a month, you will probably not be alive by then. If you're experiencing a polar night, you will probably not be able to experience the Ramadan wholly, because you cannot fast. The Arabian god Allah, who knew everything about the world because he created everything, apparently didn't know about that. He didn't come up with any solution to that, because he had no idea that such places exist. Modern scholars came up with solutions like just following times in nearby locations where there is no midnight sun or no polar night. Or you can just stick with Mecca times. But if Allah was the Almighty God who knew everything and who knows everything and who created everything, then why didn't He know about this? Why didn't He inform us? Why did His Prophet Muhammad not say anything about it? While claiming to be the wisest book ever, the Quran is completely ignorant about the world. If we look at this Ramadan, for example, fasting hours are around 14 hours in Mecca, only 10 hours in the southernmost part of South America, and 20 hours in Sweden. 20 f***ing hours. Isn't that dumb? Isn't that injustice? Allah apparently didn't bother much. But that should actually make you think that there is probably something wrong with Allah, and that there is probably something wrong with Islam. I mean, Islam seems very problematic in lacking basic knowledge that we have in the 21st century. Our Western people in the 21st century are by far smarter than Allah is, it seems. Even Islamic scholars, some weird-looking people who didn't learn anything beside religion, are apparently smarter than Allah. I mean, they had to fix Allah's dumb mistake and come up with a good solution for people who don't live in that tiny point in Arabia. You know what I think? Muhammad was just a merchant warlord in the Arabian deserts of the 6th and the 7th century, and Allah was just his alter ego. If we want to think about flaws in the Quran and flaws in Islam, we don't even have to go very far. We can start by the holiest month in Islam. That says very much about the rest of the religion, right? Anyway, I hope everyone enjoys Ramadan, and I hope we won't see Islamic terrorists celebrating Ramadan in a weird way, like strapping fireworks around themselves. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to like, to subscribe, and to share. My channel is not monetized and probably never will be, so if you want to support my cause on Patreon, you can do so. The link is below in the description. Thank you so much for every kind of support. I really mean it. I will be back with more reasonable videos on Friday. Thank you very much and have a great day and stay away from Islam.